Well, you're welcome back from that break. This is still the AM Club coming to you live from the Mix24 studios, only on the streets, East Legon, Accra, Ghana. We're excited to have you join us this morning. Today's conversation is very important, and I need us all to be here to have this conversation. But before we get into it, drinking water is something we encourage this year as well. We're continuing on drinking water and minding your business. And yes, of course, I'm definitely going to, let you know what water you should be drinking right now, and that's Jibu water, okay? Staying refreshed has never been easier. Jibu water provides clean, healthy water you can trust as your source, as your go-to source for drinking and cooking. I keep telling you that if you think water does not contribute to the taste of your food, try cooking with bad water, okay? Just try. No, for whatever reason, just try and see if it does not affect the taste of the food. With options of our innovative 20-liter bottles that come with a tap and, of course, 18.9-liter bottles, your dispensers will have a breath of new life as our clean, healthy water, hygienic Jibu water flows through them for your consumption. So whether you need a cool drink to quench your thirst or, fresh cooking water to make your meals taste its best, Jibu water is your answer to your clean water needs today. Order for yours now. By calling us on 02098458817 or visit our website at www.jibuco.com/gh for more information about our brand, Jibu Water, a better life. Now, your money, that money that you're working so hard to get deserves a safe home, okay? With Telecel Cash, you're protected every step of the way. 2 days ago, I was having challenges with one of the very troublesome online money. And I was like, I'm switching straight to Telecel because this money cannot be stressing me. My own money cannot be stressing me like this. No risk, no worries, no long stories, just peace of mind. Dial *110# or download the Telecel Play app now for safe, secure transaction. Telecel Cash, the safer choice. Send it kicking. Well, for our big conversation this morning, we're discussing what is a will. Okay. Why you need one. We have a lawyer in the house to run us through what a will is, how we could go about it. I was telling you earlier that a friend of mine at, I think, age 45 already has a will. I was asking him the other day, what do you have that you are willing to who? But he was telling me that actually any future asset has been... Please, and I'm going to ask Esquire if it is possible that money that I don't have, I can will it to someone. So let's start from there. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Well, he's Saeed Abdul Hafiz, Esquire, private legal practitioner. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's good to have you here.
Good morning. Nice having you too as well.
Awesome. Now let's get into our conversation. But first of all, let's talk about my friend's issue. He has gone to do a will already, and me, that I've known him for a very long time. I don't think he has money like that. So I was asking him, how can you will what you don't have? And he was actually telling me that you can actually do it. How true is that?
To begin with, yes, to prepare a will, you have to capture your personal properties.
Okay.
That is things you have at the moment, and then even to some extent, things you don't owe.
Okay.
Things you don't owe. There's something we have in a what's it called, in a will called the residual clause. So the residual clause captures everything you left out. Let's say I am a beneficiary under someone's will, but I don't know. So I would have to capture same under what's it called, the residual clause. So in case I am deceased or I'm no longer alive, and then they read the will, meaning I have made provisions for same under the residual clause. So to answer your question briefly, you don't have to own something before you can prepare a will. So you can just prepare a will and then just have the residual clause that so and so should go to this, and then you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Oh, I see. So my friend wasn't lying after all. Because I was laughing at him like, bro, we're still in a hassle about what's all this.
And then
anyway.
There's one thing too about the will. So you can prepare the will today and then you can amend it or revoke it at any time. Anytime. So
it's doable.
Currently, you may be a man of straw. Yeah. But then as time goes on, when you feel that, yes, probably one of your kids misbehaved towards you, you can prepare a codicil to amend it and
To
then
amend it and remove them after.
exactly.
Anywho, but in all this, we need to clearly define what a will is. And so let's go all the way back from the beginning. Let's clearly explain to our viewers what a will is.
So, as I indicated, a will is wishes of a man or a person declaring how his assets should be distributed after his death. As I indicated earlier, it includes properties or things he owns now, and then probably things he may own after his death. So the will direct as to how the things are to be distributed. So simply speaking, that is what a will is. So you cannot capture in your will what does not belong to you. So it has to be your personal property. So if you own something with someone, it has to be clear. Capture it as in, I have, let's say, a parcel of land with, let's say, A. I have a 50% interest in same. So I am giving my 50% interest to so and so.
Not the entirety.
Exactly. So you would only give what you have. So basically.
Okay. All right. Including what you have after, even though you're gone.
Exactly. As I indicated, probably you may also be a beneficiary under someone's will.
Exactly.
You don't know.
So you don't know. So you just state it in there just in case.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what is the process, to put together a will? Who and who needs to help put a will together?
Apparently, everyone, once you are 18 years and above and then of sound mind, you can prepare a will. But then, there are some legalese in that area. So if care is not taken, yes, a layman may say, I would want to prepare it, but then he may commit an error which may be fatal. For instance, if you are a beneficiary under a will, you cannot attest to the will or act as a witness in that will. If you act, meaning whatever deposition is made to you, it will elapse, meaning it will go to the residual clause. So for instance, let's say you are a father, you have properties. You say, okay, I have prepared my will. Let me call my son, who is a beneficiary under the will, that he should come and then act as a witness or attest to the witness, attest to the execution of the will. So the law presumes that so the law states that two people can act as witness or attest to the witness. So if there are more than two people, then he will still be covered as in your child. But then if there are two witnesses, including your son, whatever deposition you made to him will elapse. So you see, there are a whole lot of legalese in this area. And then, as I said,
so who is fit? Let's take it slowly.
Just any person.
Anybody.
Any person.
So it doesn't have to be a lawyer.
No. So
wow.
Anybody can prepare a will. But as I said, it has its do's and then don'ts.
Okay.
If you fail to abide by same, whoever has an interest in the will may challenge it, and then at the end of the day, it may be set.
Lose it.
It may be set.
So, for instance, I have a will. I want to prepare my will today. I don't have a lawyer, or I don't have lawyer friends. Can I just take a piece of paper and start writing? And
yes. It is done. It is done. You can do that without the help of a lawyer.
Except that they understand
exactly what to do,
what it would imply if you don't do the right thing.
Exactly. And then once you engage the service of a lawyer, they can capture your thoughts very well.
Okay.
Usually you may capture your thought, but then it may be ambiguous. So you see, there are a whole lot of rules governing this thing, and then if you go to the matrimonial, the probate court, you would see a number of cases, people challenging the validity of a will because they feel that their father in his lifetime could not prepare. And then there are so many rules to this, in the sense that they said the testator can be capricious, unreasonable. He can make any deposition, bequeath or bequest anything in the in the will. So it is not up to you, the son, to come and say you don't believe your father did this or that. So basically that explains it.
Again, so this one for me is very important. So that's why I stayed with you a little bit on it, because we need to establish who and who needs to be there to get a will done, and we have established that anyone can, but for legal reasons and for your own good, you want to put a lawyer there that would help capture your thoughts properly.
Exactly.
Now, for young people today who are like maybe the chunk of people we're talking to this morning, at what stage in your life should you start preparing a will? Or should you start considering preparing a will?
So as I indicated, once you are age of 18 and then above, that's age of maturity. And then you have sound mind. You can prepare a will.
With nothing.
Yes, I said. Yes, you can prepare a will.
And then saying that whatever you get later in life.
Exactly. So that's if you are preparing a will. So that's the reason why I stated that there is a residual clause in the will. So you, the layman, you may not know.
Yeah.
So you may not capture same. So the lawyer preparing it or an expert preparing it will bring the residual clause. Is usually it comes at the beneath of the document before the signature. Okay. So it has a way we capture it, that things I owe or I may owe after my death, blah blah blah. So you state it that it should go to so and so and so and so. So yes, you may be a man of straw. You may be a man of straw today, but then you can still prepare a will, and then your residual clause may come in handy.
Yes.
So basically.
So what usually happens to people who die without a will and have like multiple properties?
Okay, so there is law, that's the PNDC law 111 comes in handy. So if you die intestate, so that aspect of the law will govern how the properties are to be distributed. So basically that's it.
But can you break down the interstate succession law for us for our viewers this morning?
Okay, so basically before the passage of the interstate succession law, that's the PNDC law 111, there were a lot of injustice in the distribution of estate of a deceased person. In the distribution of the deceased person, some tribes will say we are patrilineal, others will say we are matrilineal. So at the end of the day, injustice is being done to people. So the law came into force to ensure that everything, irrespective of whether you are from a matrilineal side or patrilineal side, you are adequately captured. So for instance, some people from, let's say, some part of the Volta region, they would say, we are patrilineal. So if you are, let's say, you are a woman, you are not entitled to inherit, from your father, although your father, got the property. So the law was the law then was even inconsistent with, our constitution, and then, so they, promulgated the PNDC law 111, which is the interstate succession law, to ensure equitable distribution of the estate of a person who died without a will. So today, when you go to, but even in the advent of the PNDC law 111, there are some pockets of tribes who still deny, some children or beneficiaries of the estate, because they would say it's against their tribes, but then once it is challenged in law, the law will declare that whatever custom applies to that tribe is inconsistent with our laws, and but then a lot of time, a lot of the people do not want to challenge it, and then so they leave it at that. Yes.
All right. Well, in terms of misconceptions about wills, have you ever heard any that makes you think like, why would you even think like that?
No, so you see, even the scriptures capture same. I'm a Muslim, but then the Sharia has has set out how to distribute the estate of a person. So, but then you have some allowance that if you want to prepare a will, meaning you can give only 33.3% of your estate out. They are, what's it called?
Okay, so some are related to religion and they are not misconceptions exactly.
No, so I'm just coming. So in law school, I remember when the lecturer was to teach this topic, he brought some, what's it called, provisions from the Bible. If I remember, his first one was the Isaiah 38:1. That's King James Version.
Okay.
That he said, set thine house in order, thou shalt die, thou shalt not live. Meaning the said provision, that's Isaiah 38, is it verse 1?
My Bible is still loading.
King James Version.
Okay.
So it's telling you that you have to put your house in order before you die.
Yeah.
That no one is going to live forever.
Yeah.
So it's not about misconception that once you prepare, you are going to die or you are preparing to. No.
So those are some of the misconceptions.
Exactly.
That once you start preparing a will, you'll be Yeah.
So he brought a number of what's it called scriptures as provisions relating to the Bible, which talks about preparing before your death. So it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be So people actually think that once you start preparing your will, you're about to die. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. My friend is not about to die, but he's prepared his will. I'm sure he's watching this morning saying that this girl, I'll just beat her. Okay, well, so again, I think you've mentioned it already that we can change or update the will at whatever time you consider. Like the other time, my father was speaking in church and he said he's removed some people out of his will. Or he's about to adjust his will. I was like, what is all this?
Oh no, you see, what's it called? About a fortnight ago, I was at the the business center at the court complex, and then an old man came. He had apparently come to deposit his will, that he's revoking the earlier one and then deposited a new one. So you could see that, you see, yes, as at the time your father or whoever prepared the will, you may be in good terms with him.
Yes.
But then as time goes on, he believes that. Exactly. So, so as I said, you can prepare what you call a codicil to amend it or revoke it entirely and then deposit a new one at any given time.
Okay. So what role does an executor play as how important it is to choose the right?
Okay, so the executor, he is to, administer your estate. So he is to see to it that whatever wishes are in the document, the will, are applied to the latter. So for instance, you would say that I appoint Kofi as my executor. So and then
must the executor be a lawyer?
No. Any person at all can. Once you are at the age of maturity, you can just appoint you as an executor, and then your duty is to ensure that the wishes of the the testator is applied to the latter. He has no discretion whatsoever. He has to solely go by what is in the will. So that's it.
All right. Now, again, talking about that, let's talk about the role of family members. So, for instance, there's like Ebusapeni, right? Do they have any part to play when it comes to a will? Do they get to contribute to it at any point, whether it's been at the time of execution or at the time of writing?
No, not at all. So once you are the head of family and then your name is missing in the will, the document, you have no role to play. Your role will come to play when it comes to organizing the funeral, because in our law, in our customary law, the dead body belongs to the family. So not even the wishes of the person will override the decision of the family. Some people would say, if I die, I want to be cremated.
Yes.
It is up to the family to decide, not you.
Yeah, serious.
Exactly. So yes, so that is the law.
You're actually very serious about this.
Yes. So that is.
So I can't decide what is done to my dead body.
No. So that the dead body belongs to the family.
So
easy. So the duty of the head of family, Ebusapeni, will come to play in the organization of the funeral and then what have you, in conjunction with the immediate family. So once the funeral is concluded, then his job is deemed done. And then in some tribes, they will say we would have to wait until after a year before we will read the will. So once we read the will, that's when they will know who the executor is, and then his duty starts from there.
Okay, so I want to cite an example and see what happened there, because a lot of people didn't understand what was going on there. So again, in relation to the whole Busapenyi conversation, this Daddy Lumba case that just happened, was there any point that the dead body could have been handed over to someone other than the Busapenyi? Because you know that there was a verdict before the final one that had the Busapenyi winning and having the funeral.
No, so as I said, unless there is, what's it called, dispute as to who is the Busapenyi.
Oh.
But then once there's an identifiable person as the Busapenyi, then he would have to meet all the stakeholders involved, and then they would just, what's it called, organize the funeral.
So if would I like to go and disrespect to Busapenyi, be careful.
Exactly. So I'm even told, or I read somewhere on the media that the late Daddy Lumba was not even in good terms with the Busapenyi. And you see, so
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So per our customary law, and then our customary law, they are part and parcel of our laws. So the Busapenyi, as in the, what's it called, the family, they decide what to do with
the dead body.
Exactly. So in most funerals, you would see that, let's say, the person is a Christian, the person lived all his life in Accra, married, and then everything in Accra. Immediately the person died, although the funeral service will be done in Accra, but then the body will be conveyed to his village, and then so the wishes of the immediate family or the dead person does not override the, what's it called, the family, that if I die I want to be buried in Accra. No. So they will decide.
The Busapenyi will decide.
The family, and then in conjunction with the Busapenyi, they will decide that yes.
Hey.
So
Now you people who do not know your Busapenyi, you the Gen Zs, go and start looking for. So someone sent a message online. They said, is a handwritten will or a verbal promise legally valid?
Okay, so is it promise or a will? So
let's connect it to, for instance, if I told someone that I'm willing my house to you, but it's either handwritten or it's just verbal,
no,
is it legal?
So handwritten, it is verbal, but then in oral terms, that is known as samansil. So in customary law, in some instances, it is upheld. But then with issue, if someone challenges it, how are you going to prove it? So the samansil in some customs, it is valid. But then in what's it called, the Armed Forces Act. Also, if you are a serving military officer and then you are in active service, for instance, we are in war, and then bullet touched you, and then you were about to die, you may make some oral, what's it called, pronouncement that, oh, I have so and so property are here, I intend to give it, so it will be upheld. So in some instances, it will be upheld. So as I said, there's a mansil, which is common in our, what's it called, our custom, or customary settings, it is upheld. And then the, what's it called, will does not necessarily have to be in typing black and white. If you can write something, and then it is eligible, your wishes will be
granted.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, can same person sends a question, says, can a family member challenge or change my will after my death?
No. So any person who claims to have an interest in the will may challenge it.
Okay.
But then he cannot change it. So probably he may challenge it on the grounds that it was fraudulently procured. So, as I said, there are a whole lot of rules concerning what's it called, preparation of a will. That if you are preparing a will, you should be loosely a free agent, in the sense that there shouldn't be any coercion from anyone. So, for instance, one of your children will say, Daddy, I want this house, give it to me. So, so you see, so once there is any evidence that the man or the testator was coerced or persuaded or something into what's it called, making that bequest or something, anyone can challenge it. And then there are instances, when you go to the probate court, there are instances whereby a whole lot of what's it called, wills are held to be invalid. Others are fraudulently procured. There is this what's it called, popular case, which is what's it called, it's still, I don't want to sound prejudicial, what's it called, one popular Muslim man, Alhaji Asuma Banda, that some of the children are alleging that, so there's a criminal side of it at the Achimota Circuit Court or something, that some of the children fraudulently prepared a will and then passed it on as though they are father. So you see, a whole lot of things happen with that. So yes, once you are convinced and then you have the evidence that the will was fraudulently procured, you can challenge it.
Okay. Wow. Now, how much does it cost to prepare a will?
Oh, it depends.
Okay.
It depends.
So if I wanted to prepare a will today, based on the small things that I have, how much would it cost me?
Oh, for that one, I can.
So what does it depend on? Does it depend on the lawyer, the law firm, or the who is writing the will?
Okay, so no, apparently we are being guided by what's it called, the scale of fees. So you have your limit. You can go.
Okay.
You cannot go.
So the lawyer decides.
Exactly. So if you fall within the limits, so for instance, it may be between 5,000 to 20,000. Okay. So he cannot. Some may want to come down depending on who the client is. May come down, but then you cannot go above.
Certain.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So this is why I want to go and do law, so that you people come and pay me. Because me, if I become a lawyer, if I want to prepare a will for you, it's 25,000. We start from 25,000. If the system does not agree, that's their own problem. Anyway, so it depends on first the law firm you're working with, the lawyer you're working with. It's at their discretion. Just that you cannot go beyond a certain limit. I see. So yeah, we'll start preparing for that. Now, are there cultural or traditional practices that conflict with wills?
Not necessarily. So once the person has reduced everything in writing, irrespective of the fact that it conflicts with his custom or tradition.
A will is a will.
Yes. The will be deemed to be valid. Exactly.
As long as it went through proper processes.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, for someone watching today, what are the first practical steps to take if you're planning on getting a will?
I would say if you have the means, you should engage the services of a lawyer, and then he would, as in when you are in consultation, he would ask you certain questions. Usually, for instance, with let's say couples or spouses, it's a joint property. Some way, somehow, one of the spouses contributed in preparing the will, but then the man, being a domineering spouse, would consult his lawyer and then make certain, admission to the man that he owns that property. So based on that, the lawyer will also capture same in the document, and then at the end of the day, after everything, if that property does not go to the woman, she would go and then challenge it that yes, she had an interest in same, and then the man had no locus to bequest or bequeath same to any other person. So to begin with, the first step is that in order not to commit a fatal error, just consult. Once you consult, you would know as in what to do and then what not to do. And then if you want to go ahead with him, then fine. You would give him whatever you want, and then based on that, he will reduce everything into writing for you.
Again, so for those who are probably interested. So the other day I was having a conversation with someone and they said to me that I think in the law somewhere, I'm yet to read law, so I don't know if you're like as a woman, if you own properties and you're separating with your partner, they're not dead yet, but you're separating. You have properties that you brought into the marriage. You are better off financially or economically than they are. You cannot They cannot take anything from you. But if you were, in terms of financially, they were in a better place than you were, you are entitled to some of their properties. Can you break that down for me?
Oh no, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work that way, in the sense that if spouses are on the verge of divorce, or not divorce, let's say they are separating, irrespective of the fact that one is better off than the other. If you have an interest in something, you should demand for it. If
So the man can demand for properties that she came into the marriage with.
Oh no. No. As for that one, no.
So that's what I'm saying. So the man came into the marriage with his own property.
Properties, yes. Also, both
but the woman is not doing so well even after the marriage. She's demanding for the man to give her something because she spent all these years servicing him in her language.
Okay.
And so she's demanding for something. But in the reverse is that the woman already has her money and properties before coming into the marriage. The man wasn't better off or wasn't doing so well. And as you're breaking up, the man doesn't still have money, but he's demanding the woman to give her.
I now get the import of your question. So you see, the provision in the Matrimonial Causes Act is gender neutral, in the sense that any of the parties can claim for any property they want, or alimony or spousal property or whatever, from each part. So, for instance, you may make the request to the destiny. It's up to the person to decline. But then, if you feel that you have a cause of action, you would have to go to court, and then the court will order same. Usually, spouses will not grant your wish, your mere wish. Yes, we've been married for 20 years. Even when I came into the the marriage, we acquired so and so. So I want this. He may give in. He may refuse. So it is up to you. So if you want to enforce your rights, you go to court and then exactly. So, as I said, that aspect of law is gender neutral. So a lot of sometimes men would say the law is unfair. In the sense that
it does not favor them.
In the sense that they've never seen men asking for I say yes, because you've not asked for it. So,
but you're entitled to it.
Exactly. If you ask for it and then the judge considers both sides of the coin and then feels yes, you are entitled to. Why not?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it appears is this section, is it one of this section 13 or something of the Matrimonial Causes Act, one of those sections. So it's was it 23 or something? It's gender neutral.
Now, for those who find out, and this is very common in the sports world, where spouses find out that their superstar husbands have willed their entire properties to their parents, or it has it in the names of their parents. For a situation like that, what then happens to the spouse?
Okay, so that was it called? I'm told the Hakimi
Hakimi situation.
I'm told it never happened, but the people just came up.
Oh, really? But it happened though.
But you see, the law is such that their regime is quite different from ours. I mean, their laws is quite different from ours. So, if that scenario had happened in Ghana, under our laws, case law, we have what we call tracing. So, for instance, you cannot, let's say, acquire property with someone, and then later you would want to divert it and then go and then register it in the name of someone. So, if whoever is alleging and then making that claims can prove, that's what we call tracing. So it will be traced, and then if there's and then the court will just order for the justice of the matter to be dealt with.
Okay.
So I cannot, let's say, be married with you for, let's say, 20, 30 years, and then during dependency of the marriage, we acquired properties together, and then later, under the guise of whatever, then you register same in your mother's name or your father's name. At the end, or if the marriage breaks down today, at least if you have evidence and then everything, it will be traced. Even if the mother had also transferred it to someone, it would be traced.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. So all hope is not lost for those who are probably facing that situation. In Ghana, you are secured. Just go through the legal processes, and you'd be taken care of. Thank you so much, Saeed Abdul Hafiz, Esquire. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. He is a private legal practitioner. He took us through understanding what a will is and also how you can acquire a will, what it takes to do that, and even went beyond that to break some of the relationship issues, financial issues people are facing. This morning, I've said to you people that I'm going to be laughing at a lot of things, and mind you, it's not that it's funny. I'm just laughing, so don't worry. But thank you so much for coming, and we'll be back with you again with more conversations around the legal world. But if someone wants to, so someone is watching us this morning, they will need a lawyer to help them, put together a will. A young girl. Yesterday, I met a young girl, and her net worth pound. She's not even 30 yet. I was like, oh my goodness. This girl like this, I have to call her. She needs a will. She needs to protect herself before anything happens. For someone like that, how do we get in touch with you?
Oh, okay. So it's against.
I know.
Ethics,
oh my God. You know. I said this before. I said this before that when I become. In fact, I didn't say it. My best friend said that. When he's done with law school and he becomes a lawyer, this is the first case he's going to fight. Oh, no, which is you not being able to advertise as a lawyer.
You see, yes, we are very conservative under this law. Most of our laws, we copy them blindly from the UK.
Yeah.
And now, the UK, they've even done away with such law, but then this law still sits in our books.
You should be contesting it. That's what you should be doing.
in UK,
yeah.
If you watch what's it called, the EPL a lot, you would see on their screens advertising. Some law firms do advertise.
Yes.
But then they have their their rationale that's because the imbalance, the so-called big law firms will swallow the small ones. So, but then I believe
sometimes it saves you, sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly. I believe it's about time we moved away from such because those we even copied the laws from, they've moved away from. And we are still here stuck in it. So as he said, so one day, yes, you can challenge it, and then.
But he will do it. He will do it. Don't worry, I trust him. I trust him to go after a case like this. But thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now to you out there, I hope you've learned because what I keep telling you here on the show is that we keep learning and growing. And of course, these kind of conversations are important for all my young people who are watching today. Because I told you, I met a young girl yesterday. I had a meeting with her, and the girl's worth, you're making money and you're growing and you're becoming, a brand, you're becoming whatever it is that you want to become. So you need to protect yourself and your family and, of course, the people that you love. You just never know what happens. And so stay right here as we learn and grow together. We're coming up with more on the show this morning. It's a jam-packed show. Let's do this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.